Ben Fowlkes for Yahoo Sports. I am here with the bad guy himself, Chael Sonnen, who is about to box his old friend and foe, Anderson Silva, in Sao Paulo on June 15th. Now, my first question I got to ask, I heard that the boxing match, rather than an MMA fight or some other form of combat sports, was your idea. Is this true? And if so, why?
Hello, Ben. What do you got behind you there? Is that an old school fax machine? Do you have a fax machine in the
That's a
corner?
printer and a scanner, my man.
Are you waiting on a fax? Is there like that important thing that's coming through? Because I'm here to let you know it's probably not going to come.
You never know. You don't know that. I could
No,
get
you
a
know for
fax
sure.
from.
I use the word probably. I mean, there is somebody they could write in a bottle, throw it in the ocean. They could hook it on a pigeon's foot. I mean, like it is possible to get it to you, but I feel like they'd have just as much luck saying it into a sack and throwing it down a rolled down window at 50 miles an hour. Just a suggestion, just a thought.
When my ship comes in, jail, they will not be able to say to me, "We couldn't get a hold of you." That's all I'm
It's nice
saying.
to see you, by the way.
Nice to see you.
Over the years you've worked a lot of different styles with your hair, like
Here
almost
we
like
go.
you've robbed a bank and then you're trying to hide out and blend into society. I know your hair's always changing. I kind of like it like this though.
Thank you. You will relate to this as a gentleman of a certain age. You get to a point where the fact that you can still grow hair and kind of as much of it as you want, you feel like I kind of should just because I can.
That's an excellent point. I hear that, and I hear when people start thinning on top, they'll grow beards and some of these other things. I went gray very young. I went gray in like 24 years old on the sides. I've been dyeing my hair since I was about 24 years old, and I never wanted anybody to know. So I put a plan together that I'm going to dye it every Sunday, starting now, whatever that time, before I even needed to. But if I dye it every Sunday, then when it becomes, no one will ever know because it embarrassed me to dye my hair. So I've been disciplined of dyeing my hair since my very early 20s, before I even needed it dyed.
I mean, at this point, you're a salt and pepper fox at that, but you just go with
Yes,
it.
it's different at this point. I could pull that off. That's true. Or I could live with that. I just mean on a personal level, but not at one time. Like you didn't want a professional athlete with gray hair. You can't stick a guy on a poster with his shirt off trying to look scared and he's got gray hair. Like it's never happened. Even when Brett Favre did it, they stuck it behind a helmet so they didn't have to show the gray hairs. All right, you know what? I don't know why you're trying to sidetrack me. I'm a very busy man. Let me get right to the point of this. I did not ask for it to be a boxing match. I don't care if it's a boxing match. The question was asked of me, what rules would you prefer? And I said, let him choose. And you know what? Now that I'm saying that, that might have been my answer to George Masvidal. I told somebody that answer. I was dealing with Anderson and Masvidal in like the same week. All of a sudden, Chael P's in high demand, of which Chael, I wasn't even interested, but they weren't interested in me either. This wasn't like I was pushing people away. My phone wasn't ringing for those kinds of reasons. Then all of a sudden, I get a call from Mams over at Misfits, wants to do Masvidal. Hey, what rule set? I got him on the other line. I text him back. Let him choose. That scared him. I said, let him choose. Team Masvidal back down. I never heard a word again. Like there was something about that, and they backed down. Tried the same thing on Anderson. He didn't back down. He said, great, boxing rules. So here we are.
Now, obviously, the boxing
You
matches as
can't get
kind of
that. Ben, you cannot get that. You sit there expressionless. You cannot get an answer as thorough, as entertaining, and as accurate as that. I covered all the bases there. You cannot get a guest like me.
Oh, I
That's
agree with
true.
that. You'll get no argument here.
All right.
The boxing thing now seems to be really popular, really
Oh,
fashionable. A lot of people want to
yeah.
do that. Had you been boxing? Had you been in the gym, just kind of mixing it up with boxing gloves and that kind of rule set, or did you, when he came back and said, "Let's do boxing," did you have to go, "Uh-oh, looks like I better work on my boxing"?
You have some oil art over your shoulder there. That's Hulk Hogan, and that's the Ultimate Warrior, which at the time was the biggest wrestling match to ever take place. In my opinion, many will say Pontiac Silverdome 93, or I apologize, 83, Hogan versus Andre, but I do not agree. Intercontinental, which is a champion, versus the world champion, both walking out, in my opinion, the biggest match I ever lived through.
Yeah,
And I think
WrestleMania
it's still
6.
probably true to this day.
Yeah, this is the first one I was able to convince my parents to get on pay-per-view. So of course I got to get it memorialized over there.
Sure. Sure. Surprising. In hindsight, surprising that Hogan agreed to do the JOB, but they didn't quite know. I mean, they didn't like Warrior, but they thought that was perfect. They didn't know everybody was not going to like the Warrior, rest his soul. In hindsight, I'm sure he wouldn't have agreed to it. Now, and I got to tell you that because I feel like that's what we do with the interim title. People don't like the interim championship. I do. I was never world champion, though. So I don't care what comes in front of it. I don't care if you say lightweight world champion. I don't care if you say WEC world champion. I don't care if you say interim. If it says world champion, that's something very special and meaningful. And then we get that opportunity. We get that opportunity, like this Surreal Gun and Francis Ngannou. I just think it's rare. And every time we end up in a spot like that, or even somebody going for champ status, when it's a champion versus a champion, both of them have a title belt. Walking to the ring, it reminds me of Hogan Warrior. I think it's very special. And so many people don't know that reference. I'm aging myself, apparently, by having lived through that. When it comes to Anderson in this boxing match, I will tell you this, Ben, I was flattered. And I didn't know that I mattered to him. I knew that we had some moments together, but in the body of his career, he had moments with other guys. He had title fights with other guys. He had strenuous, and he had the media wanting his attention, and he had pay-per-views, and he had big paychecks, if you would like, with other guys too. I didn't. I just have him. Every big moment where somebody might come up to me and pay me a compliment, yeah, it has to do with him. Whether it was a press conference or it was something that said, or maybe we met, or it was a fight that they came to, or they watched on TV. But for me, they all tied to him. I fought 51 men. People don't know about the other 50. Like, everything in my career does tie to Anderson. I didn't know I was special to him. I didn't know that I was also his top feud or rivalry. So when I was selected for this match, his retirement match in his hometown, there was a certain prestige to that. Even if he's saying, I'm picking you because I think I can beat you. Oh, and by the way, the number one rule to beating you is I have to hurt and damage you. Like, there's an insult in there as well. But there was a part of me that did feel a little bit fulfilled to find out that I did hold a special place within his heart in terms of his fondness to his career.
Now, as for the boxing part, did you have to go and sharpen up the boxing skills, or had you already been
Yes,
doing it?
that's right. That's what you asked me. You asked me about boxing. No, I'm not. But my son started boxing, and at his age,
How old is he, by the way?
you're not really with a partner. I'm sorry. My son is 7 years old. And USAB requires you to be 8. Now, there's plenty of people that get welcomed in a room or you come in after hours, like my son. But either way, my point is the same, which is they're not sparring and they're not competing. You're doing it on a jump rope, maybe, or you're in front of a mirror, or you're doing a heavy bag, or you're learning the rhythm of the speed bag. So that was what I had been up to. And it is so wildly relevant. Like, on one hand, I feel like I could just tell you no. Because if you're not sparring, you're not doing it. Nothing's not your timing, not your conditioning. It really is one of those spots where it's important that you're doing the full speed. So I felt like I was in okay shape. I was a little out of range for weight, but I knew about this long enough that there was enough time to prepare for sure. And I'm still working on that weight cutting part of the process. But as far as the boxing and the timing and having that rule set, I never thought about it. In all fair, it didn't make one bit of difference to me. I hear other fighters talk about things I don't know anything about. I hear them talk about this guy's orthodox or this guy's a southpaw. I fought 51 men. I do not know if I ever fought a southpaw or if they were all southpaw. I don't even know what it means or why they asked me. I got asked last night by Curtis, who's my boxing coach for this, because Clayton has moved to Las Vegas. Is Anderson a southpaw? And I looked at this yesterday and I said, I don't know. I fought him. I don't know. I don't know whether I've heard other guys talk about they got a big cage and the small cage if you're in the ropes as opposed to a fence. I don't know anything about it. And I'm sure it's very relevant and important because a lot of guys do talk about it. I don't know. I don't care. I don't always follow the rules. I don't really care about the rules. I am going to try to beat him. And one thing I don't like, Ben, and one thing I will not do, and I'm not attempting to now, is to feather the nest for a fall. Oh, I didn't have time to train. Oh, I was only in the room with my son. Oh, boxing isn't my thing. I don't care if we're doing a cook-off. It's me versus him. This is my final shot to beat a guy who I've never beaten at anything. He keeps me up at night. He haunts me. I will be devastated if I lose this fight, and I will never come to you and tell you what the rules were. I will kick him in the nuts if I have to. I'm going to bring this man down. I got 4 rounds to do it, and mark my words, I will not screw this one up.
Now, you and Anderson, you've had a long relationship, as you mentioned, and it seems like it has changed over the years. Would you say you guys are friends, friendly? You definitely don't seem like the bitter enemies you started as.
It's a very hard spot because what if he was getting asked the same question, I didn't hear it, and he said nice things about me? Then I would, well, hey, hey, I was just, it's one of those things where I don't think anything he doesn't think. If he's got bad memories with me, I got bad memories with him. if this is about a camaraderie, which does happen in the sport, no matter how much you have disdain for a person, once you compete with them, there is a part, it's just gone, and there is a part of an appreciation. I hear people like to use the word respect. I wish they won it. I hear guys taking a guy's shoes and jacket in the streets because they're talking about respect. I really hate the word myself, but there is an appreciation. There is something that happens after you compete, whether it was win or lose. So I do feel something towards Anderson, but the other side of it is he selected me. He didn't select somebody he's worried about. He's not asking somebody to come to his hometown and do his farewell that he thinks he's going to come in short. I think that he's underestimated me. I don't think that was respectful or nice. I think the number one rule in this event is that he must damage me and I must damage him. I don't think that was respectful or nice. So I hear people try to talk about the respect and honor of a borderline illegal cage fight that at one time was banned in 49 states. I don't know where it comes from. I think it's gross. I hear people trying to pray to God, all these different things too. I believe in God. I'd be very disappointed if I found out that he played a hand in a cage fight. So to each their own. You do it your way, and I'll do it mine. But at the end of the rules, I'm going to beat him. I'm going to find a way, and I'm going to beat this man.
You mentioned being a little bit surprised that you were important to him. It doesn't surprise me at all, and it doesn't surprise me that he would want you for this fight just because of the history you guys have together. I'd especially think that that first fight you guys had is probably one of the biggest and most dramatic moments of his career just because of the way it played out. It looked like you were going to win the entire thing, and he pulls off a Hail Mary submission at the end. I'm curious now that you have so many years of perspective on it. What do you remember when you went back to the locker room afterwards? When you left the press conference, you went back to your hotel there in Oakland, I believe it was. What do you remember that night being like?
Oh my God, it was awful. I remember it. I remember it very well. Remember where I was. I remember who was there. It was just devastating. I mean, first off, there's other reasons and other things that the sport brings now. There's notoriety for one. There's money for one. I don't scoff at $35,000, but I got $35,000 to do it. 10% goes to the manager, 10% goes to the trainer before I bring in Uncle Sam on his cut. I'm only sharing for you. It wasn't about the money. So the result of the match greatly mattered. There was no other reason to be out there. There's no entertainment, or you're going for this, or you're trying to climb the ladder, or you win this and you move into something else. There is nothing else. It's a championship fight. It's the main event. Like, this is it. And it was devastating. And the only way you're going to return to, I mean, it's hard to get there in the first place, but return, you've got to have offered something. There's got to be some kind of controversy, or you've got to clean out the division, or it's got to be fun to watch, but there has to be something. And I just remember it being such a boring match. Like, nothing happened. The first person I saw when I came out of the ring was Joe Silva, who got up and greeted me with a handshake. And I said, Joe, I'm sorry. We just couldn't get going. And they gave me fight of the night. They came to the locker room through my tears and sorrow, and they handed me an envelope and said, Lorenzo and Dana want you to have this. And I opened it up and said, fight of the night. And it was $65,000 back then. But $65,000 is a lot of money, particularly when I only made 35, and I'm not expecting it. 65,000 when you're not expecting, like, it's this incredible thing. I don't tell you that to shine my own wheels. I tell you that because I thought they gave it to me because they felt bad for me. When I told Joe Silva, I'm sorry, because nothing had happened. When they handed me the money in the back, I never thought we had a good fight. I felt like nothing happened. And all these years later, they're put it in the Hall of Fame. It's said to be one of the great fights ever. I've seen moments of it and clips of it. A lot of things did happen, but in the moment and in there, that's not how I felt. I felt like I just could never get started. I could never get punches going. Could never get to a good position. So my understanding, my clarity of that fight in the moment, just simply isn't what happened. And I don't know if I took a shot early on. I don't quite know how I was so disassociated with the events themselves.
I remember being at that one and watching you, you're the challenger. You came out first. As he is entering, you were standing there in the middle of the cage yelling at him as he was making his way down to the cage. And you had done so much in the lead up to that fight, and it had the kind of narrative that I think had set in was a lot of people saying, like, okay, Chael got this shot. He won the fights to get up there, but he's also willing to go poke the bear when nobody else is willing to. And kind of getting Anderson mad enough that it seems like he's going to do something after a few fights for the title, which he hadn't done a whole lot. And we all kind of showed up that night thinking, well, Chael's probably in trouble here, but this is what he had to do to get there. And watching you stand there and yell at him, I kind of realized, maybe naively for the first time, oh, Chael believes. He believes he's going to win that. And I was curious, did you start out believing? Did you have to get yourself to that point of believing like he's the best in the world and I'm going to go beat him?
No, I had a couple of moments in my whole life when somebody looks back, but I had a moment. Matt Lindland, my junior year of high school, I had never placed in the state tournament. I love wrestling. I was pretty good. I was good enough to be a placer, but either way, I hadn't. And Matt Lindland is our coach. He's the assistant coach. But I'm 17 and Matt is his first year out of college. Now the internet is very different in 1994. So I'd only read about this guy. I didn't know he was even going to be the coach. No one even told me that he was. So I walk in the first day. There's that guy sitting there that was the Big 8 champion, 36-0, and paper put him. And this guy's already done everything I want to do. I can't believe he's the coach. So I was trying to impress him. And there's a tournament called the Junior Nationals. So it's the biggest event that we have in American wrestling. One of the biggest events in the world, but it's the pinnacle. And I told him, I'm going to win Junior Nationals. I skipped over state, which I hadn't even placed it. I skipped over it. And just to impress this guy, I told him I'm going to win the Junior Nationals. And he looked at me and he was very serious. And he said, I don't see why not. But that was like a life-changing moment for me. That one phrase, it changed how I went through life and what I believed I could do, as simple as it might sound, but it was a big deal for me. And I had another one similar to that, driving down the road. I remember where I was, going, as a matter of fact. And I told a reporter, not just about me fighting Anderson Silva. I said, I am the best fighter there has ever been. I'm not just the best now. They have never had a fighter like me. And I remember pausing after I said it so that he could argue with me, or so that he could correct me, or so that he could let me know why I shouldn't be making such a statement. And he did not. So I furthered the statement and I started laying it out. I said, Paulo Filo's ranked #1. They've trained to get, everyone agrees it's Paulo. I whipped Paulo twice. Of course. And I started just laying out my case. And he listened to it all. And then he printed it. He never challenged it. But saying that out loud the first time is what made me say it a second time and a third time. And there was a process where then I started to believe it. And other people started to believe it. And I don't know the laws of attraction, here's some, but it was something like that. It was as though this got created into the universe. I mean, it was one of those rare situations that if I had never told Matt Lynn that day I was going to do something and he believed it, and had I never told that reporter and he didn't pause as opposed to argue with me, I would not have got that spot. I would not be, able to have accomplished or had the experiences that I had. Those were very meaningful moments for me.
Now, you mentioned the weight cutting, the training, and everything. It's been a while for you since you've been back doing that. And
You can't get an interview like this. You
you
cannot
can't.
get that type of insight. It's not out there.
It's
They
simply
don't have
not.
it in sports.
I've looked around. It's not out there.
The
I can
guys
agree
that
with
rise
that.
up in sports get there because their parents took them in the very first place, and their parents took them because they couldn't stand them. The kids were like these annoying brats at home. They were failing in school. Here, I got to take him somewhere to use his energy so I can bring him home tired because I don't even want to be around this kid. That's the kind of guys that make it, and that's why you can't get an interview. Every now and then, you run into a genius like me. And I am happy for you, Ben. I am happy that you stayed after this, and I'm happy that this interview is happening for you. I know the excitement, and I'm happy to help.
You mentioning the weight cutting and the parents taking you to school sports reminds me of the story you told me about your dad, how he would drop you off at youth wrestling practice, whatever it was in high school or younger than that even. And when you were cutting weight, he would go and he would eat something and come back and you would ask him to tell you all about the meal because you couldn't eat much at the time. So you wanted to live vicariously and he would downplay it and he would say, oh, no, it wasn't that good. And you were trying to
Overcooked.
get him to give up the details on it just because that was the only connection you got to good meals at the time. I'm wondering, a guy who has such a long history with cutting weight and living that fighter's lifestyle, then you retire, you think maybe that's it, and then at 47, you get an opportunity here where you're going to go back in there, you're doing all the same stuff again. Is there a part of you that goes, oh, I didn't miss this? Or does it almost get nostalgic when you are back doing it again and you go, oh, hey, this is this old friend?
There's a little bit of both. And I appreciate you bringing up that story, my dad. I remember that perfectly. And I would even tell him, that's not what I want. I want you to tell me how great it was. And he never would. It really wasn't that good. Okay. the thing about it is over time, like when I look back at junior high, it was awesome. It was only awesome. I riding the bus, it was awesome. When I look back at high school, it was only good. Now, the truth is, those were very stressful moments for me, like with anybody. But you don't remember the bad. That's the good thing about the human mind. You only remember the good. So yes, when I got back into this, I was very excited. There was a very meaningful purpose, and it was very nostalgic. But then you remember why you left it, or you remember the hard stuff, such as cutting the weight or having to drink the water. Maybe not great examples, but your body being sore, your body being tired, having somebody else telling you what to do, and you must be disciplined enough to do it. And yeah, there is another side to that. After workouts, and now you're in the sauna, and coach makes you stay in there for 20 minutes, and doesn't let you out. Like there's just some really hard and trying moments. And I think, in fairness, those are the good moments. But when you're living it and you have to do it, there's a real price that gets paid by these athletes, myself included. But there is a real price to setting that 3-4 hours a day to the side, doing what somebody else says that is that strenuous and that hard, and your only reward is you get locked in a cage with somebody with Anderson Silva's skill set, and the number one goal is to damage you.
Now, my last question for you, and then I'm going to let you go and get back to drinking your enormous bottle of water. I see you on Twitter every time there's some kind of Jake Paul, Mike Tyson news. I see you have something to say about it. Here you are, you're boxing Anderson. Are there going to be more boxing matches? Do you hope for more boxing matches? Does it depend how this one goes?
I wasn't always that nice to you, Ben. And I looked down my nose at you. And I looked down my nose at you because you were a supporter of the marijuana. And I could not stand it, and I didn't like it. You were even explaining to me, very matter of fact, but a Montana mindset. I remember you used the word culture, and you were talking specifically about BJJ, environment that we both came through. And last I saw, you were a brown belt. Congratulations. If you've gotten a black, I would love to know that. But I believe you're a brown belt still. And it turned out you were ahead of the curve. I mean, the curve caught up with you. It left me behind. And they even changed the rules, and they changed the policies. Now, I don't like that. I don't want the potheads to have won. I like the day when they were embarrassed about their behavior and went behind the barn before they came back to class after lunch break giggling. But you did win. Whether I like it or not, you did win. You were ahead on that. And I hope that you can forgive me, because there was times I could have extended a nicer hand to you, but chose not to. And that was a little bit rude. If I could go back, I wouldn't have done that. I would have treated you. I would have been nicer. I think I wasn't mean to you, but I would have treated you nicer. I hope you forgive me. But that's why I had that attitude.
I'm trying to see how we got there from my question about if there's going to be more boxing matches.
Well, because you said you said this was the last question. So if I don't have a chance to talk,
Okay.
I've actually been wanting to tell you for a while that I apologize for some of the attitude I showed you in roughly 2012. Okay. No. And it used to be an ego thing. Like when I tell you that I got paid $35,000 or something, I didn't care. You keep all the money. I didn't care at all. I got to win. And I grew up wrestling. Nobody knew if I wrestled. Nobody came and watched. That's for sure. There was no such thing as a wrestling fan. But I worked so hard every day, and so would my teammates, just for them to see it, just for us to know intrinsically. So, but I got over that, right? That's almost an ailment. It's a competitive edge, and you can't really be a competitor, particularly at a high level, if you don't have that. But at the same time, it can hold you back, man. There's more to life. You can't just walk around with a chip on your shoulder. I got over that, to where somebody could challenge me and call me out. Let's just say the streets. They could challenge me and call me out. I would turn the cheek. I would walk the other way. And that was massive growth as a human being. And I even told my wife, she said, what are you doing this for? You tease guys that go and do it. And I do tease guys that go and do this. I couldn't explain it, but I said, honey, there's only one guy. There's only one guy that he ever challenges me, or he ever gives me an opportunity, ever, no matter where the circumstance, and the rest of my life, I must answer. And it's him. So you asked if there's going to be more matches. I'm using this match as his retirement. It's my comeback. I'm going to fight him. I'm going to fight George Masvidal. But I can promise you, after Masvidal, no. It'll just be these two. Finish business with Anderson, fight Masvidal. That will be it.
Chael, as always, there is no other interview like this in all of sports. You're absolutely correct about that. We thank you for taking the time.
Could you imagine? Anderson's asking this for a third time. He'll be the first guy besides Jeremy Horn that I whipped 3 times. Ben, kaboom.